They're gonna call the meeting to order at 6:31. Make an announcement that the meeting is being digitally recorded and aired live, just to, so everyone's prepared for that. First of all, is there anyone here for open session? All right. Any announcements? Okay. First piece of new business is the joint meeting with the planning board to appoint a new 5-year member. So to handle this, we'll declare ourselves as a committee of the whole. But I've been also was informed, however, that Mr. Dubois only has changed his mind and only wants the associate membership. So in a sense, we only have one person who is applying for the full 5-year member. That's Mr. Demalia. Is he here? Hi. So
Excuse me, it's Chair of the Planning. When was that message sent? Today?
Ryan gave it to me tonight.
We got it today.
Okay, I must have missed it.
Okay.
So got an email today from Mr. Du Bois, who had changed his mind once or twice in this process.
Yes.
Saying that
He
he only
changed it back.
he only wanted to be considered for the associate member.
Okay, thank you.
Just a clarification, is this a vote for planning board member for the term that was left by?
The way it
Ken
works,
Daly?
yes.
So it's only a 1-year term,
Yeah, it's a
right?
5-year term, but this member will be replacing and fulfilling the term of the member who is no longer. So it would be a 1-year term,
Okay.
and then if interested, they would have to run again. And that's also true for the associate membership, once it's handed back to you folks.
Right.
That's it, your understanding, okay?
So for the associate member position, that's recommended to the Board of Selectmen from the planning board. So the planning board hasn't given the recommendation, so we're not considering the
Right,
associate member
we're only
as
gonna be
select board
dealing with the
tonight.
full membership, okay?
But by Mass General Law, the two boards, so the Board of Selectmen and the remaining members of the planning board have to meet in joint equal votes to decide a new member.
All right. So even though we only have one, I think we should use the time to meet the gentleman and let him introduce himself, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to offer. Mr. Demalia, if you'd like to come forward, or if we can find a seat for you. What?
So yeah, my name is John Devalia Jr. I've been in town here for actually 20 years now, even though I wrote 17 on my letter. So it was 98 that we moved here, so I was probably 14 or 15 at the time. I've lived here ever since. I now have 5 kids that I'm raising here in town. I run 2 small businesses, one for my wife, the Tiny Toes and Little Bows Photography. I've also just opened up Demalia Firearms and Training right next to the Pizza Palace. All of my kids are in the center school here. The oldest is 7. So I'm invested in all of the PTO meetings. My wife runs that, is part of the PTO. I'm a Little League coach, a soccer coach. I'm very invested and interested in the town. I want to make sure that it succeeds. I'd like to see us keep our small town feel, but also be open-minded and willing to allow businesses into town, which is kind of why I'm interested in running. I'd like to see us a little bit more small business friendly if possible. Family is very important to me. The town is very important to me, and I'd like to see us grow and succeed in a positive direction.
Thank you, we appreciate your interest. Does anyone have any questions?
I was just gonna
Balance,
ask,
yeah.
can you talk a little bit about, what experience you bring to the committee aside from being your in-depth knowledge of Hubbardston,
Mhm.
being a long-term resident?
Yep. I don't have planning board experience in
Yeah,
the
that's
past,
all right.
but I do have a bachelor's degree in computer information systems. Like I said, I've run 2 small businesses in town. I've studied the zoning and planning board laws of Hubbardston extensively, and while trying to figure out our studio space, as you guys are aware. So I've kind of been involved in all that and in the town meeting processes and kind of learning about how that works. So I've kind of got a little bit of a feel for how things are run now.
Thank you.
Ed, did you have it?
I was just gonna say, I think John would make a very good member of the planning board. He has business experience, and also, as we need to look for more business and attract more businesses in town that fit Hubbardston and keep our rural character, I think he'd do a very good job in that. And I always like any man that says family's important to him.
Anyone else have any questions for the individual? All right, we'll close the discussion and take a motion.
I make a motion that we appoint John to the position of the 5-year open position to be filled for a year.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
And
Counselor
second.
Steyer?
Any discussion? Okay, as a committee of the whole, we each get one vote. So,
We have 3 of us out of the 4 here.
okay, so, all in favor?
Yes.
Do we vote separately or?
Yeah.
Nope, you vote together.
We're- It's unanimous. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
No, yeah, no, we.
Next piece of business is the special town meeting warrant for August 22nd, 2019. Okay, Ryan?
Yep, so just wanted to review the latest information about the special town meeting currently scheduled for August 22nd, 2019. So, looking to get a consensus from the board on the language for these articles. If that's done, we'll prepare this warrant. When you can, this week, you can come in and sign the warrant language as it is or as adjusted. And then we can meet all the deadlines despite, the logistical problems of me leaving the country for a little bit. So, we can talk about this as long as you want. I've talked to council about it and fully vetted through the entire thing. There's a couple versions that you can look at and just a couple of things you need for background. So the reason for the special town meeting originally was Article number 2. So this is to appropriate, you voted in June to tell the MSBA that if they accepted us into the program for the roof replacement under the ARP program, that we would hold a vote to fund the schematic design for the study of the Hubbardston Center School roof for a potential roof replacement project. I talked to the MSBA today. They recommended that we set that number at $60,000 just to make sure that we had enough for the feasibility study, OPM, etc. So this article would appropriate, borrow, or transfer $60,000 under the direction of the town of Hubbardston for a schematic design. What that means is we would get all the different options we have for replacing the roof. It'll all be done under the MSBA program. The benefit of the MSBA program is we get about 60% off the cost of the roof, which we do expect to be over $1 million. So that's the real reason for holding the special town meeting. If this language, barring any minor edits and changes, is acceptable, we'll place it on the warrant for your signature.
So the additional 20,000 is available?
So we'd be using the municipal stabilization fund, which currently has $100,000 in it, with the idea that we would target replacing that money with capital projects that have been not completed in free cash in the spring. Can't do it right now while free cash is being certified. We can't use free cash.
So if it ends up being, what was it, like estimate, like a roughly a $2 million project? So we could save 1.2 million?
Yeah. And the downside of the MSBA program is if you spurn them, it's harder to get into it the next time. The roof will need to be replaced. Could it last another couple of years? I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer, but they seem to think that we qualify from
Yeah.
all the different hundreds of projects in the
Well,
state.
60,000 is a small investment if you're gonna get 60% back.
Yep. And I remember a couple years ago, there was buckets as you entered the lobby from the water dripping in, so I think it's
They're still there.
Oh, yeah.
definitely
Same
a need.
buckets.
We walked the roof with them. We knew it's on the capital plan. We thought it was going to be a couple years, but when the MSBA says they'll help you, you try and jump at it. So this doesn't mean we'll definitely be doing the roof. Once the design comes out and the costs are known, then we'll have to go back to the town to ask for some type of borrow, debt exclusion, any type of thing to fund what's going to be a pretty large project. But it will need to be done regardless, whether we plan it or it happens by emergency.
So do you need a motion from us to change the amount from 40 to 60?
So this language can be approved, barring minor edits and changes, to be placed on the warrant, and then if you give your recommendation at the same time, that'll be the language that you're signing for.
Okay.
motion to approve Article 2.
To approve,
Yep.
place Article 2 on the warrant and recommend.
As
so
is,
choose. Yep.
right?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
make a motion to place Article 2 on the warrant.
I'll
as
second
is.
it.
Okay. Motion's been made and second. Any discussion?
No?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So you'll see we removed Article 3, which was asking for, we're trying to find a solution for our records problem. Meeting with the schools tomorrow. Jamie had suggested, actually a couple people had suggested talking to them about maybe using some school space.
It's a good idea.
It's a good idea, so we're gonna reevaluate where we're at with that, and we removed it from your consideration of the warrant. So Article 1. Article 1 is addressing the budget. So by Mass General Law, if 2/3 of the member municipalities in the Quabbin Regional District reject the budget, it goes back to the school committee for their consideration. They can do whatever they want with their budget. They can increase it, keep it the same, decrease it, and it needs to be sent back for consideration again by the member towns that rejected it. Unless it goes up, then all the towns have to look at it again. But it didn't, it went down. So the 3 towns that rejected it need to consider it again within 45 days. So we happen to have a special town meeting scheduled for the 22nd, so we meet that time frame pretty easily. So what Article 1 needs to do is amend the budget in order to meet the assessment or to again reject the assessment. This language right here is the most generic that it can get. So basically what this language is saying is we're going to do something to amend the budget on town meeting floor. That allows the maximum amount of time, and this is legal and appropriate. This allows the maximum amount of time for the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee and the School Committee to continue discussing what these numbers might look like or what your recommendations may or may not be. Of course, you can be ready for that tonight as well, but this gives you a little bit of flexibility. The note under it is one of many steps we're going to take to try and address the transparency discussions that were had at the last meeting. Just saying this is what was done at town meeting. We'll be very explicit at town meeting, showing the various versions of the budget and what it actually was done. Another version of this article that I have would state that we are going to meet a new assessment from the Quabbin Regional School District by amending other lines of the budget. So that's saying they've increased their budget and we're going to meet it, or they've decreased their budget, we're going to meet their budget by increasing ours and then amend other lines. That's another version of language that can go up. Either one is acceptable according to town council. Town council helped me craft both.
Do you recommend either one or the other?
So I just want to go through the budget
Mhm.
now and show you some of the changes that have happened and then open the discussion. And some of these I've already discussed with you. Almost all of them. So this document is now legally binding and we believe is the most transparent version to put in front of the taxpayers. So this will say department requested, and that's specifically for a school budget if there was a difference between what the school is saying that our certified assessment is and what the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee is recommending. The next column will be the annual town meeting vote, that's what's already been voted, and then the August special town meeting recommendations. And all be highlighted in yellow and printed in color so that we can walk through each line with the residents, because to be honest, this is going to be confusing. So everything in yellow I'll just go over quickly with you. So this is what I'm recommending to you for changes to the budget based on information that we know now, because some things were estimated at town meeting, and some personnel consolidations we've made in order to save some money and to change some hours. So this line right here is for HR consultant. As you know, we combined Bobby and Lori's job, which makes all the HR responsibilities come on me, and I could use some assistance there from a consultant. If you remember, for the last couple of years I've been saying we need that anyway, so this might be the time to do it. This town clerk certification, Lori's not eligible for her certification for a couple years, so we won't need that line. The accounting, this is what we are paying right now for Kinship to close 19, and then we have a new agreement with Templeton. The new agreement with Templeton has this year's dollars at $37,000. We'll pay about $6,000 to $9,000 for the Kinship to close the year. So this splits that difference. and also sets the number, what next year's number would be. The rest of the money would have to come from transfers or if FinCom's willing to release some of their reserve. This is Bobby's position, has been zeroed out, which is where the majority of the savings is coming from. Town custodian hours, we cut these hours in order to meet the budget at annual town meeting. We're using some of the savings from the job combination to restore those hours. It's not even enough hours as it is, so we feel that's important. Town website, that's actual cost. We know that now. We were able to negotiate a little bit with DocuSign and our website, which are the two things that come out of that budget. So there are a few changes, but there are not a lot, so you won't see a ton of yellow. Economic Development Coordinator, this is the actual assessment. It dropped to 4,100 because we didn't use as much in 19 as we thought. Master Plan expenses, this is being covered primarily by grant money and hasn't been used in 2 or 3 years, so we feel like this line item doesn't need to be there and we can repurpose that money. Planning Board Assistant, this is to increase hours and help with their e-filing. We took some of those hours away and then added a couple in. We restored an hour back to the Board of Health. We restored the building assistant. This was a calculation mistake that I made, so we're just putting it at the right number. This is 19 hours for the building department, which we use. This is the new assessment from Quabbin Regional School District. That's 6.31% increase from last year. Restore 1 hour to the DPW assistant. Restore 1 hour to the Council on Aging Director. As I told the Finance Committee, we've tried really hard to make this a competitive wage and the right number of hours. Claudia is very generous in her time, but at some point we'll need a new Council on Aging Director, and it's going to be difficult to replace unless we work on that. So I've been working on both the salary and the hours there. More to come next year. Library Director, this is for the new interim director, actual cost, and we shifted some of that money to increase the open hours through the library assistants. No real net change there. You'll see it's about $400. And just a small reduction in the health insurance cushion. So this is something that we can do, but it can be precarious. We're adding employees. We don't know who's going to go on health insurance, and we don't know what the new rates will be on January 1st. So
We still offer the option to opt out of the insurance, is that correct?
we don't.
Can we, or it's not?
We can consider it. We don't have, well, we do in the
I thought we did that last year. If they opt out, they
You
get.
get a break.
Yeah.
So it wasn't last year. It was at some point. I've seen the documents, but I'll
No,
look
we
into
talked
that.
about it last year.
Or even when, yeah, a while ago.
We did talk about that, try to.
Might have been 2 years
You know,
ago.
because if someone
Yeah,
has
could've.
insurance
Been
with
2
their
years
wife,
ago, yeah.
Mhm.
I know the union probably couldn't, but the non-union employees.
So yeah, I can get you a better report on that. There's not many of us non-union benefited employees,
Mhm.
but I'll get you better information than making it up. And then insurance, this is actual cost, couple $1,000 increase. We've already spent 114, which is the bulk of our payment. We just have a couple costs that come out of that line. So that deficit with the school number as it is still leaves us with 44,000 to cut. I have not recommended any cuts. I can, but I have not recommended any more pending conversation with the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen. So if we were to meet the Quabbin assessment as it is, we would need to cut 44,000 out of this budget, either by increasing some revenue projections or decreasing some expenses, which is the reason why offering a couple versions of the warrant. So we can certainly meet it and cut it and go to town meeting with a set budget, or continue discussions, or any version that you want.
What stance did you guys come to a conclusion?
What we did say, tonight is that, the second version of Article 1 that, Ryan was talking about
Mhm.
contemplates that we, go with the 6.31,
percentage increase. And, Finance Committee voted tonight to not go with that version, to go with the generic version and make the presentation on the floor at town meeting.
That would give you more time to discuss it, I assume.
That's right. Right now, we're planning to meet next Monday. I had thought we would try to get something tonight, but we were not. That's what we came up with.
So what other towns didn't vote?
So, New Braintree and Hardwick.
And how much different was their assessment compared to ours, just to?
So I still haven't been able to do the calculation on New Braintree, but Hardwick's would have put our, so you're dealing with their numbers and the school numbers, so would have put our assessment at 5.8.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe New Braintree's cut was more drastic, so 5.8 would have been if we increased to that, a consensus number, it came in at 6.3, so higher than all three towns voted at their town meeting.
Yeah.
But as you know, $1 less than what they say is a rejection of their budget.
Yeah, yeah.
And you, based on when we talked, you kind of feel that Hardwick will go for it, so that swing vote is New Braintree?
I'm not sure.
But that's your gut feeling?
Hardwick, it's hard to speak for another town. Hardwick is already in a negative assessment, so they were looking at next year and other costs by voting against the budget. I don't know if the pressure would be, basically they'd be saying we want you to cut more even though our budget's going down. My guess politically is that's gonna be tough, but it doesn't mean it's not possible. In New Braintree, they don't have a town administrator anymore, so it's harder for me to get information.
Sure. But the bottom line is if four towns go for it and we're still holding, we have no choice.
So there's a ton of logistics here, and I know willing to slow down and talk through anything. If we pass the budget and two other towns don't, then there could still be further reductions
Back
in
to
the
the
budget,
drawing
but
board again.
we're through the budget season and into FY20. If we vote anything less than what they assessed, and another town does as well, then it'll go same process. Back to the school committee, they have 30 days, and then we have 45 days to respond, which will bring us pretty close to December. So I don't know if everybody would get done.
That's when the state gets involved, right?
December 1st, the Secretary of Education will step in and tell us what our budget is. Either our budget in between or a school budget. So no worse than 6.31%. Depending if they don't change their budget between now and town meeting. If we vote to not fund the budget, but everybody else does, then it's essentially we're outruled, and we need to pay that anyway, and we'll have to have another special town meeting to do the 44,000 in cuts.
Yeah.
Well, I was at the last meeting when the school presented the two very meager cuts that they did to get us closer. And, I take a look at us and $44,000 further cuts. We took $100,000 out of capital stabilization to make this budget balance the way it was. Our capital stabilization is only $100 and something thousand. And under the old guidelines, we would always take free cash and make it all capital stabilization. So you've already taken $100,000 from capital stabilization, which if that's not there next year, how are you gonna make up that 100,000? And then to cut this budget another $44,000? If you didn't have the 100,000, you'd have to take $144,000 out of here if you hadn't used the 100,000. So, at what point in time is there a balance that says, yes, we need good schools, and we always have had good schools, but we also have to run the municipal side of our business. I know I said some of that last time, so I'll try not to repeat it again.
No, I think it just highlights the problem. I mean, it's going to be the same thing next year. As far as the school, they're coming back with increases, et cetera. We seem to be dealing with this same problem every single year. To your presentation, we need some kind of a new way to assess and come up with our amounts, because we're the ones that are really getting hurt by this, so.
If they go back in zero-based budget, that would be a strong indicator of exactly what they need in all departments. Let them
Yeah, that-
start and justify, you know, as we do here, you know, department by department. Let them start with zero and show you, let them build their budget from a zero-based budget, and that would be an interesting budget to look at.
Anything else?
So looking for, not only, we gotta get this warrant out of the door, posted and mailed to residents, which was why, I presented a couple options, but leaning towards a generic option, which allows the most flexibility. Once that's posted, we can put a link up on the website, share the most recent information from the finance committee, make sure that goes out on social media, try and saturate as much as possible. And of course, you know, I love my handouts, so we'll have them at town meeting, multicolored, and as easy as possible to understand. It's just gonna be messy regardless, it's just a messy process, but that's,
Have you figured out where these cuts would come from yet?
of course, I've looked at it.
But I mean, it
So this,
obviously at town meeting, you'd probably have something to present then on where the money would come from if it was approved.
my recommendation to you, and talk through this with council, is that, there is a likelihood that someone will try and amend the even if the Board of Selectmen, the FinCom, went in and said, let's keep it at 5%,
Mhm.
and reject the entirety of the school budget's increase. The chances this time of someone not amending that to try and fund the schools is high. Doesn't mean that there would be support there, I don't know. So we should have a backup budget, because we'll have to go through line by line, and that's gonna get confusing. So I would be prepared for something like that,
Or would it be,
But-
at your direction.
But I thought the backup budget would be presented at a second, at yet another special town meeting to take the, to find the $44,000.
So, I'll just back up a little bit. If there was a motion made on the floor to amend to fully fund the school's request, then we would then, to balance, have to cut on the floor.
Okay,
So we would have to address the budget, so we wouldn't wanna do that, you know, sit there for an hour and caucus. So I would need some direction from the board and finance committee as to what that would look like. And I think the best case to be made is whatever case you decide to recommend, and then when the motions are made or not, to make those arguments saying, here's what you're gonna lose, or here's what you're gonna gain.
so would it behoove us as a board, based on the finance committee recommending it as a generic with with the recommendations to be aired at the town meeting, would it be up to us to actually go along with that, with the same, when we approve this?
So this article, I'll throw it back up. With its accompanying note, again, says that there's gonna be some changes made at the budget,
Mhm.
and those will be presented and recommended, at the special town meeting. To include everything fully funding the schools to not funding anything, or decreasing, it could be
Mhm.
any type of change. But this covers us to get to town meeting. Probably without your recommendation until you come to some conclusion on numbers or see what the FinCom recommends.
Also, so you're saying we don't really need to do anything formal tonight with that?
Unless you wanted the language to be different, you'd be accepting this language and putting it on the warrant for future discussion.
So, to accept it as it is, okay?
Yeah, I
Yes.
think we should keep
Okay
it
with that?
generic.
Okay. Someone wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to keep Article 1 as presented here.
With the ability to make minor edits.
Minor edits.
I'll second it.
Motion made in second, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll give a swing through this,
Mhm.
again, just to make sure there's no spelling errors or anything like that. And then it'll be printed, and Bobby will reach out to you to sign
Sign.
5 copies.
Sure.
And then next week, when Lori's back, she'll post it as
Mhm.
required, and we'll get it mailed. So this will be the warrant that's mailed. We'll put the same thing up on the website for everyone information. And as different recommendations come in from Finance Committee, or if there's another meeting of the Board of Selectmen, we'll put those up as well.
Alright.
With the idea that voters will be saturated with information at town meeting, so we can make the best decision possible.
So at this point then, now we could take a motion to close the warrant?
Yes.
I'll make the motion to close the warrant.
Second it.
Motion made and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. And we need a motion also then to sign the warrant.
Now that it's closed and you've made the motions, we can just prep it and we'll call you to sign it.
Okay, fine. Old business,
Are you all set with us?
FY 20th budget discussion.
Unless you wanna discuss the budget more.
Did you have any questions, any other questions you wanted to ask of us?
Gentlemen, do you have anything?
I'm good.
Yeah, I got one quick. What do we have to lose if we
Nothing.
present a number that lets us operate our town as well as our school?
Nothing.
Because if the other two vote for it, you're back to that number anyway.
That's right.
And
Correct.
so,
That's right.
and,
Making a statement anyway, yeah.
yeah, I mean, looking at the options, but
That's right.
Go down fighting.
Well, was it you, Josh? I was sitting in your meeting for a minute. They really didn't make any reductions. The reductions came in insurance savings.
Right.
So they haven't technically gone through their
They haven't.
budget.
Right.
They haven't cut anything.
No, if they didn't get them savings from the insurance, would they still be at the original
Yes, they would.
number?
Right.
Yes, they
You
would.
know?
Yep.
Yep.
Though to answer your question, I guess the other possibility would be that if we came back with firm on our number and another town did, then it kicks the can down the road
To the state.
towards December, where, you know, we then get a number we don't want. The budget, a lot of other costs have been sort of set because we're well into the fiscal year. And so in terms of even trying to make cuts, it gets a lot harder. We've already spent, you know, some of the money. So that's, and then also the cost of having another special, you know, potentially another special town meeting. and-
each meeting.
Yeah.
yeah, a couple
you know,
thousand for
yeah.
special town meeting.
So, I guess that's the other, risk.
What's the other thing Ryan mentioned to me anyway, that if it got to the point and went to the state, historically, the state has sided with the school department.
Mhm.
No, I don't think that's true. I think the last time it happened was what, 2015?
That it went to the DESI, yeah.
I think it was 2015. And I don't think we ended up on the shorthand side of that.
Yeah, I wasn't talking Hubbardston specifically, just generally. The state favors the education side.
It's still a gamble. But
For those watching, just the cuts, they're not gonna be, cuts could be made, I mean, we can make anything work, but there will be losses to town services.
Right.
no question about it, yeah.
Discussions have been made about cutting road maintenance money, cutting, employee hours and others that are being recommended. And we're at a functioning level that it's not a lot to cut. And you don't really notice until you come to town hall and you need that service and the door's closed, and that's where we get the majority of our complaints, our roads and service hours. That's the first things that are gonna be
Affected by it.
affected,
Yep.
so I'm a pro-education guy, and I think we need the fund, but there's only so much money and it's gotta be divvied up, so people have to decide how they want it divvied up, and the staff will respond and we'll do whatever it is you tell us to do.
Ed,
Have we made any further thoughts as regarding selling the 4 properties on Ragged Hill Road?
We
And-
discussed it last meeting,
Last
but
meeting.
Ryan was gonna look into it.
When I
And
get back, I was
that, I remember that money was earmarked for something, but I don't know what it was earmarked for. I don't know who finance knows.
No.
No, didn't we originally approve $100,000 to try to find land for the senior center originally? Wasn't that what, and those lots were combined, the sale of those lots, we're gonna refund that.
Offset the 100, yeah, I think it was an offset to
think-
100,000.
Yeah. But I mean, those lots of, 4 lots, it's gonna be worth more than 100,000 now.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I get back, I do owe you a report on what that would look like. We do need a budget, though.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on the FY '20 budget? Okay, now TA report.
Okay, then I think, we'll adjourn.
Okay, we'll pause for a moment while you guys.
Excuse ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ryan?
Alright, we had the whole town here, and now it's just us.
Yeah.
You fine
Plus us.
gentlemen, and you fine gentlemen.
Plus us.
Alright, so budget update, I think we've hit the budget. So I'll skip on past that. We interviewed 3 candidates last year for a shared assessing assistant. We talked about sharing this with Rutland. I was very impressed with the quality of candidates we had. We do believe we're checking references today, and we'll have an announcement tomorrow in terms of hiring a shared assessing assistant. Very happy that the hiring committee included the Rutland Town Administrator Michael Nicholson, Harold Scheid from RRG, and Al Alfonso from the Board of Assessors. So I feel like we had a good representation, and there was a consensus hiring.
And all those shared, in my understanding, they will actually be working out in Hubbardston?
It'll
Is
be a
that correct?
Hubbardston Town employee, 2/3 of the cost. So this might be another confusing thing on the budget, but we might increase to say, cover the salary of that, and then we'll have revenue coming in from Rutland to offset that. So there'll be no change in the budget, except the numbers will look crazy. So we going from a part-time to a full-time, but I'll explain that fully. We actually save a little bit of money in the
Mhm.
shared services agreement. Our finance team, we met last week to discuss the special town meeting, the FY '20 budget, and the upcoming tax rate calendar. We agreed to meet in early September to start the FY '21 budget process, which sounds funny while you're still trying to do FY '20, but we do want to be prepared once everything is final to set the tax rate. And it didn't happen today, but it's going to happen on Wednesday. We have a conference call with Kinshirf to start closing out 19. So at your next meeting, your next scheduled meeting, if you don't schedule another one to talk about the budget, the auditors will come in and talk about FY '18, and then you'll feel like it's Groundhog Day because they'll be back a month later to talk about hopefully 19. But that'll get us on a better calendar. Some infrastructure updates. Paving began on Highbridge, Underwood, and Morgan roads. On our social medias, we put up some videos and pictures. These are our Chapter 90 projects and commitments from this year. They should be complete by the end of this week. Obviously, there's some close up and the like, but it'll look like they're finished by the end of the week. Residents, like I said, can find pictures on our social media sites, and there's also a lot of repair work going on Brigham right now. If residents want to see that, to try and permanently fix some of the potholes with some asphalt solutions and the new roller. And then for employee recognition, I'd like to thank Kelly Pontbrian, who's our new town accountant, and Sandy, our treasurer, for taking extra time and making sure we met our deadlines for payroll and AP warrants. That sounds pretty simple, that's our daily job, but they really went above and beyond as we transitioned to a new accounting set of procedures, a new accounting software, implementing that all at the same time. They had Bobby running like crazy. Bobby put in extra time with them in order to make this transition as smooth as possible. So we've had a couple glitches, and we expect to have some within any transition, but I think by the fall we'll have fully implemented in a pretty quick timeline these new processes and procedures. And I think they'll be good. We have more face time with accounting, more employee time, which is what we're investing in. And then I've just listed some upcoming topics for you. Just a reminder to the board and everyone, I'm leaving for military duty this week. I will be 9 hours ahead, so if you need me, I'll be in the future. And you can expect that I'll be checking my email about once a day, depending on its reliability, but won't have the type of contact that people are used to until I get back on the 17th.
Okay. Alright. Any comments?
No.
Okay, we have 3 appointments to be made, and Sarah McMaster for the Cultural Council, Dave Ledger, Zoning Board Member, Jane Gregorio, Council on the Aging. I think this can be done in one motion. to
Just-
accept the appointments, there's nothing else, there's no waiting or anything like that.
Just wanna speak about B real quick. This, if you remember, the zoning board of appeals came in.
Oh, yes.
This is
yep.
for their associate member, which is allowed if the board chooses to put an associate member on the board. This would allow them to fill in during a recusal
Mhm.
or anything else so that they can vote, which is poignant right now as they're trying to make decision. There's also another gentleman who came in today to be on the zoning board of appeals, so if
Good.
there is a vacancy, he said he would fill in or wait, so that appointment can be there, so we can get this board more robust as they requested.
Great.
So David would be for the associate zoning board member, and then Sarah for the cultural council, and Jane for the council on aging.
So do you want us to take his separately so that we can add that in?
I would.
Okay, then let's take a motion for Sarah McMaster and Jane Gregorio.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for Sarah McMaster, cultural council, and Jane Gregorio for council of aging.
Second it.
Motion been made and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. And a motion for David Ledger, zoning board
Associate.
associate member.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for David Ledger, associate zoning board member.
Second it.
Motion made and second, any discussion?
I just think it's important that I did talk to the zoning board of appeals chair. They're aware of the
Mhm.
situation and didn't wanna come in and talk to it, was allowing the board to make that decision.
Okay,
Does the town charter, allow the ZBA to have an associate member? Is that
Yes.
not about town charter?
On the zoning bylaws allow an associate member if approved by the board of selectmen. It's a non-voting member unless the chairman of the zoning board of appeals replaces someone with the associate member, and then they get full voting rights.
So you're setting that up now as the select board setting that up, or was that set up in the past?
So they are saying now that that's okay to have an associate member in its current term, and that this would be the person.
It'd be helpful.
So we take a vote on that.
okay, again, to take the motion on David Ledger, zoning board associate member.
Yeah, I made the motion.
Was it, did you second it?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay, motion made and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Go back to number 4 for a minute, cause when I said old business, I just went right to the budget discussion. Is there any other old business that has to be brought before us?
Not tonight.
All right, seeing none. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Okay. Public press. Before we adjourn, wish you a safe couple of weeks where you're going to be, and
I'll be back.
That's it?
safe trip.
Yeah.
Yep.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn made at 7, what is that,
15.
7:15?
Second it.
Made and second, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
I'll be back.